Hello, my name is Chris Kiak. I'm the Vice President of ConXCAD with ConXtech. In this video I'm going to demonstrate and train you on the ConXBOM program, which is a standalone Windows application that can run on Windows XP, Windows 7, or Windows 8, and essentially allows you to manage advanced bills of material and assign ABM marks for preliminary marks to those materials, as well as track changes between those advanced bill of materials, and even compare the changes between the advanced bill of materials that you did at the beginning of a project in comparison to the detailed bill of materials that you would have near issue for approval or issue for construction. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin by launching the installer for the tool. And again, the tool is available for free, and you can request the tool by emailing info@conxtech.com. Again, that is info@conxtech.com, and just send a request in for getting access to the ConXBOM application, and we will send you a link to download and install the tool. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and say next. And there is a end user license agreement. Please read that carefully before continuing on and using. So I'll say agree and next. And I'm just going to install this for everybody on the computer into the default directory. And then it'll go ahead and install those files. Alright, so once the installation is done, one other thing I wanted to show you is that there is a help document here that you can open up and read. And so basically you can read through all the instructions, the purpose, and it has a lot of visual information in there telling you how to use the tool, install the tool, etc. Very similar to what I'm going to show you in the video here today. Alright, and so now that we've got this installed, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and first create a model here in Tekla Structures. And so what I'll do is I'm going to use the ConX Digital Chassis Configurator to quickly create a ConXL structure. So let's just do a basic building, 4 bays at 30 by 3 bays at 30 feet. And we'll just go ahead and say create chassis here. And within a few moments we have all of the beams and columns that we want to work with for an advanced bill. All of the setbacks are correctly applied for the connections that would be there. So if we open up the properties, we have the member size here, the material grade, and if you wanted to, you could even assign the material to different phases in the phase manager, which would be like your erection sequences or your construction phases, and that will go across in the bill of material export as well. Alright, so the next phase is I'm just going to select these pieces here, and actually let's do a numbering real quick. I'll just do a modified numbering. You don't have to, but I'm just going to do one just so I have current piece marks set here. If I just go ahead and window around all this material, I'll then go to the report dialog box, and then we're going to run the ConXBOM.csv file, and we're going to run that in the ConXBOM folder here in our model folder. So I'm just going to go ahead and say create from selected. And then here inside of Microsoft Excel, it'll open up that file, and let's just fit the column widths. So we have an itemized bill of material report. It's got the grid location as well as the length, material profile, as well as the part name. Now the length is set up to imperial decimal feet, but if you're working in the metric environment, you can just edit the ConX bill of material template file, the RPT file in Tekla, and you can change that to millimeters or whatever units of length that you want to work with. It won't support feet and inches though, because when it imports into the tool, it's looking for a decimal number here. Alright, so the GUIDs are also included here, and the only reason that they're there is for the change management part of the program, and the purchasing agent doesn't need to worry about that, and you don't really see that in the ConX bill of material tool, but that's important for being exported here. Now one other important thing to note is that the ConX bill of material tool is not limited to exports from Tekla. It's just that's what we use here in-house at ConXtech. But if there's any other detailing application that can provide the same formatted comma delimited file, then you can easily do that and import those bill of materials and compare them in the ConXBOM tool. Alright, so I'm going to close that down. And then the other thing that the detailer would typically run is the summary report. And this summary report we use here at ConXtech to go out to the service center and working with the mill to come up with our requisition for purchasing materials. Alright, so basically this is the same report as before, but instead of itemized, it just summarizes all the quantities and combines the same pieces with the same properties. Okay, so that explains that, and the next stage is to actually go into the ConXBOM tool. Now when I installed it, if I just go to my start menu, you'll see a ConXBOM icon here, and it's a little bit hidden from the video, but it comes in the installation, as well as on your desktop you'll see a shortcut icon. So I'm just going to launch the tool, and then we'll size it here to fit the screen, just so you can see everything that we're going to be working on. And really the way that the tool works is you start on the primary toolbar up here at the top from left to right, and the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to just change the default directory, so that way we don't have to browse folders as much. So I'm going to come down in here to the Tekla Structures model folder. So let's go to, let's see, this is the ConXBOM demonstration model folder. So ConXBOM demonstration, we're going to go to ConXBOM right there and just press OK. Alright, so now that sets the default path. So whenever I browse to files, so now I'm going to load the original bill of material export, which we just exported from Tekla Structures, you'll see that there is the actual report file. So we're just going to open that up, and there you have an itemized list of the bill of materials. Okay. Now, one thing that's really neat is that the comment field, if the detailer wanted to specify anything like rolled or radiused, or if they had some pieces on hold because they're missing design information, they can actually go to the user-defined attributes here in the model, and let's open up that. Go to user-defined attributes, and on the parameters tab there's this comment field, so they can fill in any of the comments that they would like, and then that will come across in the bill of material export. Alright, so if we go back in here, we don't have anything that looks like except for maybe some of those RBS beams. That just signifies that there's a reduced beam section cut on those. Okay, and what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to go ahead and select all the rows. I'm going to say Control A here on my keyboard, and you'll see that the item numbers, which is basically your ABM mark or your preliminary mark number, they're all set to 0 by default here. So what we're going to do is we can either say make them all the same number, like if we wanted to combine similar pieces and give them the same number, we can do that, or if we just want unique sequential, which is what we typically do here, and then a start number of like say 1 or whatever you want to do, then you just say number, and it'll go through and it'll number all of those items in the list. Okay, one other neat thing that you can do here is once you set the requisition form or the summary report to the service center you're working with or the mill, what they can do is they can give you a cut list or show you a nest report that basically says each of your pieces with their item numbers or the lengths of pieces in the profile, what did they fit that to as far as like in a cut list, or what bar are they kind of associating that to. So what you can do is for on your reference you can say bar number and then the length as a reference, and then what you can do is you can select all those pieces here in the model. So let's say that I have some beams down here. I can just come in here and say that these are all cut from the same bar, and so I can associate that there. Now also, if the purchasing agent had a comment that he wanted to send back to the detailer and associate in the model, or just a note for himself for his own recollection, he can put his own comment in here, so like my comment, and then just say comment. And so you can store all that data. And once you've changed the preliminary mark numbers, set your references and your comments as needed, what you do is you just basically say Control All again, and we would just go ahead and save this out. So we go to the right hand side of the screen and say Save Current, and then we're just going to save this as the original bill of material. So that's the one that we've kind of modified here versus what we originally got from the detailer. So we'll just save that. And then we can load that at any point as well, just by loading up here like we did the original time here. Now the other thing that we can do is we can export the changes that we did here for the reference, the comment, as well as the item number. We can export that out to Tekla to be attribute imported in. So let's just export that out. And we'll just say original bill of material to Tekla, and then I'll just go ahead and say save. Okay, and then what I can do is I can go into Tekla Structures and I can attribute import that information. So if I go to the beam properties here, you'll see that the preliminary mark field is set to empty right now in the model. And then what we'll do is we'll go to attribute import, and then we're going to import that data here into the model. So under the File, Import, Attributes menu, we can see that there's the attribute import dialog box, and then we can set the directory here. So I'm just setting it in the current model folder, ConX bill of material folder, then original bill of material tekla.csv, and you can also browse to the file. It's a comma delimited report. We're going to do this for the entire model and create a log. So we're just going to go ahead and say create, and then what it'll do is it'll go through that report and associate the correct properties to all the objects here in the model. Alright, so we can see that it's imported the reference, the preliminary mark number, as well as the comment field. So if I go back into any one of these pieces, go to User-Defined Attributes, you'll see there that the preliminary mark number has been associated. Alright, so the next steps are going to be, let's do some design changes. So let's say that I wipe out the steel here in the corner, and then let's go ahead and say that I add in a few gravity beams here, so like some roof opening beams or something like that. So let's load and make these W14 by 22s, apply, and then we'll just kind of span there. Okay, and then we can copy these to a couple different bays. So there's some additional steel. So we've deleted steel and we've added steel. And then let's say that I want to modify some of these beam sizes here. So let's say that we change those to W21 by 44s. And then let's say that some of these girders up here on the top, we can maybe make those 24 by 55s. So we can also select from the catalog and then modify. So there I've modified some beams here, and I've added some additional beams, deleted some steel out. Now what we can also do is we can shorten the steel a little bit here. So let's get in a plan view, and let's maybe just kind of stretch these items here. So let's just move these down, and then let's just do that like say 12 inches. And then what I can do is we can just kind of trim these here. I'm sorry, let's select these first, and let's do a trim on these pieces. Alright, so this steel got a little bit shorter due to this skew, and this beam would have gotten a little bit longer, this beam a little bit shorter. And maybe this isn't enough for us to do a revise or a revision on the advanced build, but it is a detailing change that has happened here. So we've got that change that's gone on. So let's go ahead and go back to the 3D view. And then I'm just going to go ahead and select the steel. And then we're going to export a new ConXBOM report. Alright, so here in the report menu, I'm going to just call this, say, Rev1 for the original bill of material. And then I'm just going to make sure that this goes in the ConXBOM folder here. Alright, and then I'm just going to go ahead and say create from selected. It'll create that report. And so now here's a revised itemized list. Now notice that there were some pieces that had the ABM mark that or the item number that we imported back in, but then there are these new pieces of steel that don't have that mark, and we're going to see that as changes here. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and close that down, go back to ConXBOM tool. And you would also run a new ConX bill of material summary report for the entire job, just so that way a nest comparison can be done by going to the service center or the mill and just verifying. But let's just go ahead and close that down. We'll go back to the ConXBOM tool, and we have our original file here, but let's just go ahead and go to the current file, and we're going to load Rev1. Okay, so Rev1 is now loaded. You'll see that these are just immediately that there are some item 0 pieces which haven't had ABM marks associated to them yet. So you could either associate those ABM marks now, like say you wanted to specify those in a different numbering series. So you could say, let's make this the 500 series for a revision or something like that. And then you could just come in here and say, run those, and then now you have those. Then you could sort the list here if you want to. And then also if you ever want to do like a filter, you can just come over here to filter and say anything with 500 in it, and then there it looks like, okay, so the material grade is 500, so that showed up. And then here this piece with 500, or if you were just looking for pieces that are boxes, you could do a filter by that, and only the fields with box would be showing up. So you can either filter, or you can click the headers to sort the list in different ways that you want. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we've loaded these two different things. We're going to come in here and we're going to go ahead and say copy change, we're going to go ahead and do the changes. Now on the changes tab, basically you don't want to really worry about material that got shorter because of, say, like at this stage, if we were even adding connections or detailing the connections, and the setbacks got a little bit shorter than what we originally advanced built. I don't really care so much about that because I know that I'm covered in the material nest that I'm working with. The only time that might become an issue is if something gets really short, like shorter than a foot or shorter than 3 or 4 feet. Then it may significantly change my nest, and I would like to get know that ahead of time and potentially go contact the service center and change the material that I'm ordering. But typically you're not worried about little bits of changes and getting shorter. You do care, however, if things get longer and you want to be flagged on anything that grew a little bit longer due to a design change or anything that might be incorrect in the model and you had to get it make the piece a little bit longer. So now that we've got the original and the current loaded, we're just going to go ahead and say compare. And actually, even before that, let me cover one other thing. Sorry. If we go over here to the options, you can choose to make the list, even the comparison routine, a little bit more kind of deeper or in depth and compare more properties. By default, it only compares the length, the profile, and the material grade. And then also the sequence. So those are the 4 primary things that it looks at when it does the change comparison. However, if you want to have the tool compare like name changes, like whether beam or column or brace changed, you can have it look at that. If you wanted to look and see if the ABM marks for some reason are different from the original to the new submittal, you can have it look at that. You can also have it compare the assembly marks. So not only is this tool good for advanced builds, but if you were at detailing phase and you wanted to see if any piece marks changed between out for approval and issued for construction or released for fabrication, you could compare piece marks, the shipping marks or the part marks. Then you could also compare comments. So if the detailer did do some changes in the model and he tagged that comment user-defined attribute, and you wanted to compare and see if anything new was filled in there versus the original bill of material, you can also choose compare comments. In this particular case, we're just going to leave it at the defaults and say compare. Within seconds, this thing will automatically scan through all of the original and then the current parts, and it will tell you all of the specific changes. Now if I click on each one of these items, you'll see here that if it's a modified piece, it'll highlight which properties have specifically changed. So I can see that on this item number 61, the piece mark has changed. Okay, and then here on the deleted piece, I can just see that that piece is no longer existing in the model, and then the new pieces represent new parts that I had added in here. Now, one good example of something that I did wrong in the model. I can see that I repeated the ABM marks when I was modifying the properties. Okay, so one thing I can do before I even do these changes, you see these 4 or 5 61s now. If I go back to the current, what I can do is I can go ahead and say, well, let's just copy the original item numbers, the reference, and the comments that I had, and just copy that from the original export and copy that to the new or the current list of parts. So we'll just say select all the parts here because I want to copy it all and just make sure that they're all correct. And then we'll say copy original to current. And then that will make sure that any of those 61s that I had repeats on, those no longer exist here in the model. So let's go back to the change, and then I'm going to run the change comparison again. And now again you'll see that you don't see those 61s anymore. It has the original ABM mark there for reference. So what's really neat is that you can not only see this in a visual interface here as far as the itemized list of all the changes, when you click on each one of these pieces you can also see where is it in reference to the model or the project or even the design drawings. So if you're trying to kind of go through and explain and justify all the different changes that have happened and where they happened at on the job, the purchasing agent can clearly see that, okay, hey, this is located on this particular location. He can go coordinate with the project manager and figure out which change order this may be associated to. Alright, so the other thing that we can do here is that once we have this list, let's say we want to print it out for the project manager, and what we'll do is we'll just select everything here, and then there is this option to print. And when we print, we can say changes report and save that, and basically it just gives us a delimited file that we can work with here. And then let's go ahead and say format, fit the columns. Now the other thing too is if you just want to filter by only things that have changed here, then what you can do is you can kind of select all of these, and then we can come in and just add the filters. So just add filters at the top, and then you could say only show me things that are set to false. So we'll uncheck the true, and then that'll only shows pieces where something specific has changed, and then it tells you which properties have changed. So you have the item number or the preliminary mark, the sequence that belongs to, then you have the piece mark, the name, and you can say that it's what's the change status, whether it's new, modified, or deleted. And then here we can see the specific properties that have changed. Alright, so I'm just going to close this report down. And then the last thing I'm going to show you here is that we can export these changes and visualize them in the model. So that's also a neat way to explain and help communicate to a contractor or a customer or design team you're working with the impacts of the changes that have happened. So what we'll do is we'll just come over here to the export changes to Tekla, and we're just going to save that away. And then that saves that into a comma delimited file, and we'll go back to the model and attribute import that in. Alright, so we're here inside of the model, and we've got the attribute import dialog box open. But first I'm going to load up a set of object representation rules here for the bill of material changes. So I'm going to load that up, and then that way we can see modified and new changes. So we'll colorize the model by that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to import that changes to Tekla CSV file. So we'll say create. And here we can see all of those statuses have then been imported into the model. And then now we can see that the orange represents modified steel, which matches what you saw me actually do live there earlier in the demonstration. And if I just go to the beam properties and go in here to Userdefined Attributes, go to the ConX design page, you can see the ConX bill of material change status. So that way we can kind of see which pieces have changed. Alright, so thanks for watching this training and demonstration of the ConXBOM tool. Again, if you are interested in trying out this tool, it's free, and you can request the tool by emailing us at info@conxtech.com. Again, that is info@conxtech.com. Thanks very much for your attention.